The galaxy stretched endlessly, full of stars, nebulae, and unexplored systems, yet humanity existed scattered among them, not as a unified power, but as countless independent civilizations with no single authority to guide them. The dream of a centralized Imperium, the grand idea that had once seemed inevitable, had never materialized, leaving human worlds to grow according to local priorities, ambitions, and survival needs rather than any universal plan. Each colony fleet that left its origin world carried its own vision of governance, its own culture, and its own expectations for the future, and as they arrived in distant systems, they discovered not a galaxy awaiting domination, but an infinite expanse that offered no guarantees. Decisions made on one world could not be enforced on another, and the lack of a central coordinating authority meant that every human civilization evolved in isolation, shaped by its environment, its enemies, and its resources, creating a patchwork of societies that shared ancestry but little else. In this galaxy, the absence of unity did not lead to immediate collapse, but it profoundly altered the rhythm of human expansion, making survival a matter of adaptability rather than obedience, ingenuity rather than loyalty, and local strength rather than universal strategy. From the perspective of Terra, long believed to be the cradle of human destiny, the spread of human civilization no longer followed a grand arc. It scattered across the stars like sparks in the void, each burning independently, none capable of lighting the galaxy alone. As centuries passed, the isolation of human civilizations caused them to diverge not just culturally but fundamentally in their structures, technologies, and social philosophies. On some worlds, leaders embraced rigorous militarization, creating fortress planets and heavily fortified systems designed to survive indefinitely in hostile environments, while other planets experimented with radical decentralization, allowing local communities complete autonomy in decision-making and development. Languages, customs, and even social norms evolved at different rates, making long-distance communication cumbersome and often incomprehensible. Trade networks existed only sporadically, reliant on chance agreements rather than standardized procedures, and diplomacy required extraordinary effort, often failing under the weight of incompatible priorities. In regions untouched by significant alien threats, human societies flourished creatively, building technological marvels or redefining governance, yet their innovations rarely spread, isolated by distance, culture, and the sheer unpredictability of interstellar travel. Where one civilization reached for the stars with massive fleets and automated infrastructure, its neighbor might still cling to pre-spacefaring traditions, preserving knowledge in archives and oral histories, and as generations passed, these differences compounded, creating an ever-widening gap between human civilizations that shared no unifying banner, no central law, and no single destiny. Conflict and cooperation coexisted uneasily in this fragmented galaxy, often governed not by ideology but by pragmatic necessity, yet the absence of a unifying Imperium meant that agreements were fragile and alliances ephemeral. Neighboring systems sometimes banded together to defend against local threats, pooling fleets and resources temporarily, only to dissolve the moment immediate danger passed. Wars erupted frequently, not as galaxy-spanning crusades, but as regional struggles over resources, territory, and influence, with no one power able to impose lasting resolution. Diplomacy was fraught, not because humans lacked skill or insight, but because coordination over interstellar distances was inherently limited, and each civilization had developed its own sense of strategy and morality that rarely aligned with others. Even the largest federations could not endure for centuries, as political, cultural, and technological divergence eventually led to internal fractures, making every large-scale human alliance temporary, precarious, and local in scope. Humanity survived, but it did not dominate, and in many systems, the absence of external oversight allowed societal decay or stagnation to creep in unnoticed, leaving pockets of innovation alongside regions mired in repetition and inertia. Without a central imperium to define enemies or enforce strategy, warfare among human civilizations changed profoundly. Conflicts were smaller in scale compared to an empire-wide crusade, but their frequency, unpredictability, and intensity made human space turbulent and dangerous. Fleets clashed over access to trade routes, strategic systems, or key technologies, yet no single victory could alter the balance across multiple sectors, and no defeat ended a civilization entirely. War became cyclical, measured in decades or centuries, with successes and failures balanced by chance, geography, and adaptability. Some civilizations developed specialized combat doctrines suited to their environments, orbital bombardment techniques, planetary defense grids, or advanced stealth strategies, while others relied on sheer numbers or psychological intimidation. The absence of a unifying command structure meant that each conflict was unique, shaped entirely by local capabilities and decisions, producing a galaxy where survival depended not on obedience to a central authority, but on the skill, cunning, and resilience of individual civilizations. Alien civilizations observed this fragmented human landscape with a mixture of curiosity and caution, because unpredictability became humanity's defining feature. Some human civilizations welcomed contact, forging trade agreements, alliances, or temporary non-aggression pacts, while others treated outsiders with hostility, launching preemptive strikes or denying entry to their space. From the alien perspective, humans were no longer a single, coherent entity to be countered, but a variable, shifting pattern of independent actors whose behavior could not be reliably predicted. Expansion by other species became a patchwork effort, advancing where human influence was weak, and retreating where local civilizations demonstrated effective resistance. The galaxy, in essence, became a mosaic, with humanity present everywhere yet centralized nowhere, a scattered species whose decisions shaped local outcomes but rarely influenced the broader narrative of galactic affairs. Isolation without central oversight produced extreme technological and cultural divergence. Some human worlds embraced automation, artificial intelligence, and mechanized governance, transforming entire planets into self-sufficient technological marvels capable of sustained interstellar exploration. Others, wary of overdependence on complex systems, relied on human labor, simple machines, and decentralized social structures, preserving older knowledge and traditions. This disparity created a galaxy of extremes, where fleets of gleaming starships coexisted alongside barely functional transport craft, and planetary societies with millennia of advanced science neighbored populations still dependent on historical methods and archives. Cultural norms evolved similarly, producing worlds where hierarchy and authority were absolute, and others where consensus, experimentation, or individual freedom dominated daily life. The lack of a central imperium meant that no standardization existed, and each civilization developed independently, producing a galaxy of diversity unrivaled in any unified empire. Over millennia, the absence of a unifying power reshaped humanity's collective identity. People increasingly identified with their homeworld, federation, or alliance rather than with humanity as a whole, and the concept of a single human destiny became abstract, discussed in theory but irrelevant in practice. Each civilization curated its own history, often conflicting with the records or myths of neighboring systems, creating a tapestry of human narratives that shared ancestry but diverged in meaning, values, and interpretation. Terra's significance waned, regarded as an ancient cradle rather than a command center, while distant civilizations pursued independent priorities, unaware or indifferent to worlds far beyond their immediate influence. Humanity became a collection of civilizations, connected biologically but separated by experience, culture, and circumstance, creating a species defined more by fragmentation than by unity. capable of survival yet incapable of imposing itself collectively upon the galaxy. Despite the advantages of flexibility and adaptability, division imposed significant strategic limits. No single human power could respond effectively to galaxy-scale threats that unfolded over centuries, and coordination among civilizations was hindered by mistrust, distance, and incompatible goals. Slow-building dangers, alien expansions, resource shortages, or systemic disasters often reached catastrophic scales before multiple civilizations could recognize and respond to the same problem, and by that time, the lack of unity meant interventions were partial, uncoordinated, and often ineffective. Humanity endured, but survival was reactive rather than proactive, achieved through a patchwork of local solutions and adaptations, rather than through deliberate, empire-wide planning, leaving humanity vulnerable to cumulative risks despite its resilience.
As millennia passed, the galaxy continued to evolve largely indifferent to humanity's fragmented existence. Powerful alien empires rose and fell, natural cosmic events reshaped entire sectors, and major galactic developments occurred without significant human involvement, not because humans were extinct, but because no single civilization dominated the strategic or cultural narrative. Humanity remained present across countless systems, but as background actors rather than central protagonists, influencing local events but rarely defining galactic outcomes. In this dispersed state, human civilizations continued to survive, adapt, and occasionally thrive, yet their collective impact was limited, rendering them observers and participants rather than architects of the galaxy's fate. Ultimately, humanity endured as a species but never achieved the scale or coherence of a galaxy-wide imperium. Civilizations persisted independently, thriving or declining based on local conditions, leadership, and opportunity, leaving a scattered, complex mosaic of human existence. There was no grand narrative, no centralized authority, and no shared legacy that bound the species together, only fragments of civilization struggling to adapt in isolation. Humanity's story became a constellation of individual tales, a galaxy of survivors maintaining continuity through ingenuity, resilience, and adaptation rather than through empire or unity. In a universe that had expected domination, humanity survived quietly, proving that survival does not require central authority, but legacy almost always does.